Good morning, everyone. It's 10 on the dot, and we have a bunch of attendees already online, so we're going to kick this off. I'm Holly Dowden, VP of Marketing for Ntiva, and I want to thank you for joining today's webinar on business continuity, today, tomorrow, and beyond. I would like to introduce you to our guest speaker, Nadia Karatsoreos, and she's from our partner, Datto. And Nadia will be taking us through the presentation today. Note that if you have any questions during the presentation, as per usual, most of you are used to joining these webinars, you can put them in the chat window and we'll address them at the end. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Nadia to start the presentation.
Thank you very much, Holly, and thank you everybody for joining today. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day, and we'll try to make this as informative as possible. So as Holly said, my name is Nadia Karatsoreos, and I have the honor of working for Datto. Datto is a great company, and it allows me to work with all different types of businesses all around the world and really help them with their business continuity journey. To tell you a little bit about Datto, because chances are you've never heard of us before, we have a lot of locations across the globe, 47 today, and we support lots of different types of companies, specifically our partner like Ntiva. We have about 14,000 plus partners just like Ntiva all over the world. And we support lots of different types of businesses, as I said, specifically in that small and medium business space. And we're supported by about 1,500 plus employees today, and that's continuing to grow. And that's because of the need for business continuity and the need to assist these types of businesses. So today's title is Business Continuity, Today, Tomorrow, and Beyond. So let's start by looking at what's happening in our world today. Now, business continuity is not something you hear all the time. And most of the time, what you'll hear is things like backup or disaster recovery. And you're thinking to yourselves, well, I've had a backup in place for over 10 years now. And a lot of the times when we think about traditional backups, we think of things like USB sticks or external hard drives or even tape backup. And when we think why we need those backups or why we needed them for all these years, we think of things like disasters, like those fires, these floods, and tornadoes. And we all know that things like this happen. We see them on the news. We've heard horror stories, maybe from some customers of ours or maybe from some friends or family. And backup is really important in cases like this. But the truth is the biggest disaster are humans. People are our greatest risk. Those natural disasters or those fires do happen, but the greatest risk for your network and for your business are people. Now, we think about the people on our staff, but we also think of people that have malicious intent. Now, I usually give this presentation live, and at this point, I'll ask for a show of hands of who has heard of ransomware. So I'm going to imagine if I ask this question that a few of you will put up your hands. But what the truth is that ransomware is something that's continuing to grow, and we're going to talk more about that in just a minute or so. But the total ransom paid last year by small and medium businesses was over $700 million. That was in 2018. And that's continuing to grow. So you think the amount of money that's being paid, and what it is that a malicious attacker, a hacker, which you've heard before, will hold your data, your network ransom, will hold it until you've paid that ransom. They'll keep it on hostage. They won't let you access your data. They'll encrypt it or they'll hold it completely until you've paid that ransom amount. And just last year, we saw that small and medium businesses paid $700+ million. Now, FSecure is a company that releases this every single year. And the first time I looked at this, I thought it was a map of the New York City subway line. And although it probably looks something similar, this is actually the threads and the new threats that come up every year. We're still waiting for the 2018 one from them. They usually come out about a year after. But if you look at this, ransomware has been around for a long time. We saw the first strain, the first thread come out back in 2012, and it continues to grow. And as you see in 2017, each month there was a bunch of new threads, and this is new threats to you whether you're a large enterprise business, whether you're a small, medium business, whether you're just a personal computer owner. These threats are to everybody. We heard back in 2017, you probably remember hearing on the news things like WannaCry or CryptoLocker. That really did expand and make it so that everybody was really at risk for having ransomware. There's lots of different types of ransomware. Again, if you probably remember that WannaCry was everybody just kind of logged into their computer one day. It was about 150,000 people, and there was a red message on their computer that said you have to pay this few $100s in order to get your data back. Fast forward to 2019, and they're becoming a lot more tricky. They're becoming a lot more strategic. There's new ransomwares called popcorn time. And what that does is it really does test your morality, because instead of paying that few hundred or few $1,000s to get your network back, you can offer the name of two friends, probably two enemies, I would say. And instead of having to give them that type of money, all you have to do is give these two email addresses, these two names. They'll attack those two people and give you back your data. So really, really strategic. And again, this is not just something that's happening here in North America, it's happening all over the world. And you'll see here that it's become so intelligent that you can actually use that drop-down menu and find your language and read what you got to do to get your data back. So again, very strategic, very smart. Another one I want to talk about is the Fat Boy ransomware. And what that does is it looks at the cost of a Big Mac in your area. So for example, a Big Mac in Los Angeles, a large metropolitan city, maybe costs $5 or $6. But a small town in, let's say, North Dakota might be only about $3. So they know, based on the cost of a Big Mac, how much people can afford. So they will ask for ransom a lot higher in Los Angeles versus that small city in North Dakota. So again, it's becoming so strategic. It's not just, let's just throw a net out there and see how many fish we can catch. It's being really strategic. And this specific ransomware took it a step further. These genius hackers, these malicious hackers, realized that this was such a good malicious ransomware that they offer it as a service. So if somebody wanted to start doing this and start attacking people, but didn't want to have to go through the trouble of creating their own virus and their own ransomware, they could actually purchase this and start attacking people. So it's really sad to say, but some of the most brilliant, genius IT minds in the world are turning to a life of crime because it is so lucrative and because there is money to be made in all different areas. What does this mean? This means that we need to protect ourselves. So a lot of people, and again, I talk to lots of different types of businesses out there, they'll say, I already have a great backup solution. And they'll talk to me about the fact that they're doing all the things they think they need to do. They have their data in the cloud. We all have heard about the cloud by now, and we feel like it's safe because it's not on our site. So if something were to go wrong, I can just grab my data back and be back up and running. Well, in theory, that sounds like it should be the right way to do it. But just over a year ago, about a year and a half ago now, the city of San Francisco had a terrible attack. They had a cyber attack that knocked out San Francisco's transit system fare terminal. So those kiosks that you would go to purchase tickets to use public transit. So this happened, and they said they have an IT department. We'll just restore from our backup solution. They had a great cloud backup solution to get them back up and running. But because you can imagine how much data there is and how strategic and how much difficulty there was in getting that data back, their network down was actually down for 2 days. Now, it wasn't just any 2 days. It was Friday and Saturday after Thanksgiving, the two busiest shopping days of the year where everybody's out and about and most likely using public transit. So the San Francisco transit system provides, I should say, about 735,000 rides a day. And depending on who the rider is, they'll spend about $1 to $2.25 per rider. So the total revenue loss, because they could not charge these riders, was between $1.5 and $3.3 million in just 2 days. Now, that's a huge organization, that's a huge transportation system, but that's just to tell you they had a backup solution. They didn't have business continuity. The point of this is that ransomware is running rampant, and it's become an epidemic. And if you think about epidemics, usually we start to think about like health epidemics. And if this was a health epidemic that we were talking about, we would start wearing masks and we'd learn the best ways to wash our hands and to avoid disease control and all these things. We need to treat ransomware the same way we treat that. And today, we said that we're going to talk about today now. Today's security focus remains primarily on your on-premise network. So when we think about on-premise networks, I know we talked about the fact that we all know about the cloud, but a lot of the time, still to this day, we really focus on we talk about security and keeping things secure. We talk about what's happening in our office, in that closet, in that server room. That's kind of where we primarily remain focused on. But Datto and Ntiva kind of provide that extra step. We talk about business continuity. So we want to protect your data no matter where it lives. And we know that today a lot of people are focusing on-prem, but we have the opportunity to help you in the cloud as well. So when you have to have business continuity, you have to have reliable data redundancy. So this is just a quick map. We're not going to get too technical here, but if you look at the physical production machines, that's what you're probably all watching this webinar on today, whether it's a laptop or a PC and a monitor. That's your physical production machines. Most networks today, if not all networks today, have some type of virtual infrastructure as well. That's that connection to the cloud. So what we will provide you together is a virtual physical continuity device. So it's a device that will sit on your site and it'll have on-prem data backup and business continuity, but it'll also bring it to the cloud as well. And we have 2 off-site locations to make sure if any of those natural disasters happen, if any of those human errors happen, whatever it is, you are protected because it is truly redundant. Today's standard is a hybrid cloud platform, and that's what we believe. So although we said that when we talk about security and we talk about the entire industry, we'll talk about the fact that they're looking at on-premise, the standard is the fact that people have on-premise and they have cloud. It's a hybrid of both, and that's the standard. But what else can we do today? So if we look at all these sort of risks, whether we talk about the human errors, those malicious attacks, or we talk about the natural disasters, what can we do today? First off, we have to have a disaster recovery and continuity plan. And the folks at Ntiva want to help with this. And we'll make sure that we get our contact information at the end so that you can reach out and get going. But what I usually say, if you're running a business, no matter what size, more than likely you have a plan that includes if a fire alarm goes off, what to do. If you're on this side of the building, please use this set of stairs instead of the elevator. And let's meet on the north side of the parking lot by the big oak tree. Everybody has a plan because you have to when it comes to fire alarms. What are we doing about business continuity and disaster recovery? If there is some type of disaster, any of the disasters we've talked about so far, what is your plan? What are you going to do to get back up and running and have your business run smoothly so you're not like the city of San Francisco's transportation system and losing that much money in just 2 days? What is your plan? The next thing you want to do is look at regular staff training. And I've worked with lots of different types of businesses, and a lot of people say, I train my staff. We have a great new hire program, and we train our staff and we tell them exactly what to do, whether it's that disaster recovery plan or maybe it's just something that we have in place. Now, if anybody on the line here has been a new hire in their lives, which most people have, you'll know it's like drinking from a fire hose. And chances are you might remember 1 or 2 things from that new hire training class, and the rest you will forget. It's a lot of information and as you get going. So great, include it in your new hire training, but also continue to train your staff. And the folks at Ntiva want to help out with that as well. And Datto has some great programs as well, so they can access what we do. So if you're interested in that, reach out to us. We want to help out. But you want to have regular staff training. You want to make sure that sometimes people do it with just an email that goes out, like a regular email. Maybe it's a monthly town hall you have that includes just a 10-minute quick training that talks about what's going to happen to our network. Why is our network and our technology so important to our business? And why do we need this to keep going and keep our business up and running? A story I'll share with you is it's a funny but pretty scary story. And it just tells you how much you need to train your staff. If you all remember, just over a year ago, there was a scare in the state of Hawaii that there was going to be a terrorist attack. And it was pretty scary. People were running, people didn't know what to do to hide, and it was a pretty major deal. And it turned out that it was a false alarm. It was an accident. It was, again, human error. This gentleman here was one of the people on the IT team that determined that it was a false alarm. So a hero, really, and was able to calm everybody down and get back up and running. So he became pretty famous in the whole country and even across the continent as the person or one of the people on the team that determined this was a false alarm. So his picture was everywhere. People were checking in on his social media platforms. And if you did a quick zoom in, you'll see this is the IT person. He had his password on a yellow sticky note taped on his monitor. We all know somebody we work with. We all know somebody out there in our world that either has it as obvious as this, or they have that yellow sticky note hiding under their keyboard, or have a folder saved on their phone or their laptops that have their passwords. That's just one place that you want to start with that training program, where you teach them not to do things like this. And I know we're all shaking our heads and maybe smiling, but this is a scary, sad truth. This is the easiest way to get attacked, is to have your security out there. If you have a home alarm, if you have a passcode for your phone, you probably wouldn't leave that lying around. You have to treat your network and your company's technology the same way. And again, this is just one reminder of why you need to start training your staff on an ongoing basis, no matter what department they're in, on what they need to do to keep yourselves and the whole entire company secure. So that's what's happening today. We want to look at business continuity tomorrow. So how do we continuously look at what's happening in the world, what's happening in the industry, and continue to keep ourselves safe as we move into this new chapter? So on-premise, and as a reminder, on-premise platforms is what's happening on your network, in your office, in whether it's your production machines, whether it's a server closet that you might have. On-premise platforms will slowly move to cloud-hosted infrastructure. Like we said, right now, we kind of see this sort of hybrid of both. Some people are still completely on the on-prem. Some people have moved into the cloud. But right now, we see the trend that it's both. As we move into tomorrow, our next chapter, we're going to see on-prem slowly go away, and everything we do will look at more of a cloud-hosted infrastructure. That includes SaaS applications used today, and that will only expand tomorrow. So when you think of SaaS applications, and the short form for SaaS is software as a service. So those are things like maybe your accounting and billing platform, maybe it's your CRM or account management platform, so things that you access through the web. And we all make a joke and we say there's an app for everything, but the truth is there pretty much is an app for everything. And we use them in our personal lives, and we also use them in business, and we don't realize sometimes how much we use them. So, how many applications, how many SaaS applications will we have in use tomorrow? So if you think about all the applications used today, and sometimes it's tough to think about all the ones we do because it's like second nature. It's like breathing. We come into our offices, we start off our computers every day, and we log into these systems, and we don't even realize that we are accessing these SaaS applications. And we actually did a little practice here at Datto. So as I mentioned, we have about 1,500 plus employees. We did a survey of all employees, and we asked them, how many SaaS applications do you think we use daily? And we came back with the average of about 12. So again, this is a pretty large company, worldwide company. We have sales staff, we have accounting staff, we have business development, we have tech support, lots of different departments. And the average person thought we used about 12. And this is today, not tomorrow. This is today. We actually use over 75 today. And as I said, the industry is telling us that that's going to continue to grow. So in the next couple of years, that number is easily going to get into the hundreds. We need to understand that applications run our world, whether it's our personal life, like I said, you're monitoring your weight or the amount of steps you take on your personal life. Maybe you're looking at things like your online banking. Everything we do is on apps. In our business world, we don't stop to think about how much we rely on apps as well, but we really do. Business continuity tomorrow will include SAS Protection. So what does that mean? So we're protecting our networks now, like we talked about, right? We are making sure that we have that disaster recovery plan. We have that true business continuity. So if anything goes wrong, whether it's natural, whether it's malicious, whether it's an error, we have that protection. Now we need to take that a step further in this next chapter and look at protecting our SAS applications as well. So why do you need SAS protection? Well, 1 in 3 companies using SAS, using those applications, will lose data and is losing data today. So if you think about, again, for the example, if you're using an accounting or billing platform or a CRM tool for account management, think about all the data that's in those applications. 1 in 3 companies at some point will lose that data somehow. How are you going to get it back? Think about everything that goes in there. You need to protect those applications. And 47% of data loss is caused by end user deletions. So what we just saw there, that 1 in 3 companies that lose data, 40%, the reason is human error. Our staff just made a mistake. Whether they're trained or not, they made a mistake. You need to be able to get that data back. 20% of that data loss is caused by those hackers, those IT geniuses that turn to a life of crime because it is so lucrative and they're causing you to lose data. So not is it just your entire network, or when we used to have a lot of our email platforms, for example, on premise, 20% is actually attacking these SaaS applications as well. So your application, your SaaS application data is still vulnerable to ransomware. And a lot of the times we've all been guilty of thinking we have it in the cloud. I'm paying this company to host this application for me. They'll take care of the security. And Ntiva and Datto realize we need to take it a little bit further. We need to keep that protection, and we need to have that extra layer of protection, and it is our responsibility. This is another question I usually ask, and I say, have you heard of Ransom Cloud? And I'll tell you, most of the time, nobody puts up their hand because it is still a pretty new thing that is happening in the industry. And what it does is hackers infect Office 365 and things like G Suite. So we no longer have those big Exchange servers. Before, we would log into our email and it would be a big box that maybe sat in a closet in your office. But now we use Office 365, or we use things like G Suite, like Gmail, and they're starting to infect that. And the user will receive an email inviting them to try a Microsoft branded spam filtering tool. And it's no longer how it used to be. If we all think back about 5 or 6 years, it was extremely obvious when something was spam or something was malicious because, you know, grammar was off or the color of the brand didn't look quite right. Now it's a lot more intelligent, and they're asking you to authorize access to your account. Before you know it, your email is encrypted, and what that means, it becomes a whole bunch of garbled letters that you can't understand, and they hold it ransom, they hold it hostage until you pay that ransom. They demand that ransom. And this is happening in your cloud, in your SaaS applications. The gentleman you see on the screen here is Kevin Mitnick. He is a very interesting guy, and if you're going to Google anything after this presentation, you probably want to Google his name, Kevin Mitnick. We actually met him at an event and invited him to come out to Datto, and he filmed a video for us. And this video is for small and medium businesses. If you'd like to access this, we will give you an email address at the end. Feel free to send us an email. We'll give you access to this video. But it's not selling Datto. It's not selling Ntiva's products. What it's telling you is that your SaaS applications are vulnerable, and this is why. He has been a hacker his whole life. He's turned into an ethical hacker now, and he's actually helping people and helping people realize that you are vulnerable, and he does a great job with it. So this is to tell you that you're using those applications, you're using them today, you're going to use them more tomorrow. You need to protect yourself. So tomorrow's standard will be a unified platform for on-prem, hosted, and cloud infrastructure. As the on-prem slowly starts to go away, you're going to see some things that are still hybrid, but you're really going to see that hosted and cloud infrastructure become the standard. Now, we wouldn't be doing justice if we only talked about today and tomorrow. The whole idea of what we do and we continue to do is look beyond tomorrow. So what's going to happen? What's our world look like beyond tomorrow? Well, your workforce will include more fluid workspaces. What do I mean by that? And it's already started today. You'll see a lot of people working from home. You'll see a lot of satellite offices. As I said, Datto has 47 locations all over the world. It started with just one. And we've built through growth, through acquisitions and mergers. We continue to grow. You want to look at different types of talent that you can get, maybe for development or support. You'll start looking at different locations. So your workforce will continue to look a little different. You may just have one office today, and maybe in the next 3 to 4 years and beyond that, you may start to have some satellite offices or allow employees to work from home. So your workforce is going to change. Anybody on the line heard of IoT, the Internet of Things? It allows everything you have to be connected to the internet and accessed. So we all have heard of things like thermometers or thermostats on our walls that are connected through the internet. So let's say you've left on a Friday for the weekend and realize, you know what, that air conditioning is pretty high. We probably don't need it that high over the weekend. Instead of having to get back into your car and drive back to the office, you access it through your phone, and what do you know? You have that thermostat changed. Things like refrigerators are now IoT enabled so that you can have your grocery list sent to your phone so that when you're at the grocery store, you know what you need. Kitchen sinks are also now becoming IoT. Coffee makers, one of my favorite things is a coffee maker. You get it all ready, and on your drive to work, before you start driving, you set it so that it starts brewing and you get to work and you have a nice hot pot of coffee waiting for you. These are all things, these are IoT, and that's what we hear about. It's great. It's convenient. Everything we can do is at our fingertips. But again, if we're thinking about a trend during this whole webinar, we need to start thinking about protection. So I mentioned a few of the common ones used in offices today, but today we have about 11.2 billion connected devices. So if we think about all the things in the world we use personally and in work, that's how many devices are being connected to the internet. Connected devices tomorrow, and we're for 2020, we think it's going to be about $20+ billion, or billion devices, pardon me. So this again makes you think, in just 1 year, we'll see this double. And this is again because of the fact that, just think about yourself. How many things do you have that you use for work? Maybe you use a laptop, a tablet, a phone. Maybe you also have a wearable like a watch that's connected. Think about just on your person right now, how many things you have connected, and we don't even know what the next wave is going to bring to us. IoT opens the door to vulnerabilities. Like I said, because of this trend, and this is the things we're talking about today, we want to make sure we understand all this stuff is great, and all this stuff is going to make our businesses and our lives better, but it leaves us vulnerable for attacks and leaves us vulnerable for losing data. So IoT targeted malware grew 203% in 2018. Why? Because it's just more common. When we think about back 2017, 2016, 2015, and before that, IoT was around, but not a lot of people had it in their homes. We started seeing these thermostats come in. We started seeing people wear watches. This started becoming more mainstream, and because of that, that malware, that malicious attacks that we talked about, grew for these IoT devices by 203%. Pretty scary stuff. A quick story I'll talk about here was something that happened last year in 2018. It was the greatest casino heist of all time. And when we think about that, usually in our heads, we think about what we saw in the movies, right? And although that was a really interesting story, it took a lot of people and a lot of strategy. Instead, what they did, so fast forward to 2018, what they did instead was this casino, and we've all been to these really elaborate casinos in Las Vegas, and if you haven't, you've probably seen them on TV and in the movies. One is usually fancier than the other. This particular one had this fantastic fish tank, this great aquarium with lots of expensive fish and, just so visually pleasing. The casino got hacked through its internet-connected fish tank thermometer. These genius hackers used the fish tank thermometer to steal high rollers' personal information. So when you think about the things that you see, that fish tank was being monitored, IoT, to make sure that it was clean and the right temperature. So great, right? For the people that do the maintenance here, that was extremely convenient, but it left them vulnerable because it wasn't protected. And again, we talk about the fact that all these geniuses out there are doing this because it is so lucrative. Think about the money they could have received back because of the fact that we need to get this information back and need to keep it secure. So that's just one story, but you hear about stories like that all the time. You want to look at how your users are consuming data. When I say your users, you think about the employees on your staff. A lot of the times right now, there's a password for this and there's a password for that. And we kind of chuckled at the guy out in Hawaii who had to have a little yellow sticky note, but the truth is that there is a lot of passwords out there. And how are you consuming that data? And we look at the future, one of the things they talked about is having sort of like a user-based solution. So you'll be able to log in and identify yourself as a user just one time and be able to access all data. And as much as that is something that we're looking at, we need to make sure that it is secure. And that's something that the industry is looking at. And that's kind of something that we've been watching is how do we keep things secure and make it easy so that people aren't tempted to have that folder on their PC with all of their passwords written down. The industry knows that that's not secure, but the industry knows that it's tough otherwise to remember 12 to 75 passwords. So how do we use that user-based solution so that it goes across all platforms, whether it's that thermostat, whether it's the coffee maker, whether it's your CRM tool? How do we use our persons and how do we use our own security solution to allow us to do that? We have to look at total data protection. So all these things we've talked about, whether it's the IoT devices, whether it's the SAS applications, whether it's our email, our cloud infrastructure, we need total data protection because if something goes wrong, and we see that the chances are pretty high that it could, we need to have our business run continuously. Today, we have the most comprehensive BCDR lineup, that's business continuity, disaster recovery lineup in the world that will continue to protect you tomorrow and beyond. So this is what we have today, and this is what Ntiva can offer you as well. And this is just a quick snapshot of this. We'd love to get into more detail about that. Personally, we can do a needs assessment and look at what your company and what your business needs. So how are we doing? What are we doing? How are we helping for today? Because we need that protection today, and we're continuously looking at how we're going to continue to help. So we're not just, here's a solution. In a year or two, we'll be back and see what's going on. We're working on that tomorrow and beyond today. So I talked about the needs assessment as well as the continuity planning, as well as the training, videos, reports. If you saw anything here today that you'd like to get your hands on, please email Michael. You'll see his email address on the screen. And we'll make sure that through Datto and Ntiva, you get that information. Like I said, reports, videos. If you'd like to see any of those articles that I flashed up on the screen pretty quickly, happy to provide those to you as well. But most importantly, what I hope I drove home was the message that you need a needs assessment and you need to start talking or thinking about continuity planning. And Ntiva wants to help with that. So please definitely do send us an email here. I'll leave that on the screen for you. And please let us know if we can set up a call with you. We can come out on site and help you out with that. With that, that is the end of the presentation. Holly, was there any questions that came through?
I don't see any live questions, but for folks still on the line, you can always send Michael or myself follow up and we'll be happy to help you out. Thank you so much, Nadia. That was super interesting. I got a few chuckles out of it myself with some of those slides. Your stories were great, so thank you so much for presenting. And for the rest of you, stay tuned for our next monthly webinar, which is going to be, I don't know the exact date, but mid to end of August. So thanks, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.